This is the Dallas Morning News.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into SportsDay Insider presented by the Dallas Morning News. I am Kevin Sherrington, joined by my pals Evan Grant and Calvin Watkins. It's awfully early in the morning after staying up all night, only to watch the Dodgers wreck the Blue Jays' dreams in that 18-inning game 3, which only tied the record for the longest World Series game, and which happened just a couple years ago at Chavez Ravine. So, but there were a lot of other records broken in that game, and we're going to talk about all that later. But first of all, we're going to talk about the Cowboys, which is like Groundhog Day.
Must we?
Well, we have to. Yeah, we do. We have to talk about what's going on with this team after just a disaster in Denver. You know, I guess that makes them what, Calvin? 1-6 or something like that in Denver. Historically, I think that the Cowboys.
I think they've lost 8 in a row.
Oh, it's worse than that. Okay, all right.
And
I looked it up. I looked it up at one point, but now I have such brain fog after staying up so late last night. It's too late for an old man like me. But at any rate,
something like that. Haven't won since the 90s.
Yes, I think 92. And so it's been a disaster up there for them all along. I picked them to lose. I think that's the first time I got them right all year long. But here's what I figured out, too. When they play a bad team or a team with a losing record anyway, then they can beat those teams. They can't beat good teams, and they can't beat good teams on the road for sure.
They can outscore bad teams.
Yeah, well, usually, yeah, exactly. They can outscore people, but that's the other thing too.
Not people, bad teams.
Bad teams, yeah. But they also play well at home. You can usually count on that. Although this week, Calvin, as you have continued to point out, they're going to end up playing the Arizona Cardinals, who are not a good team, but they have a quarterback who has never lost in Jerry World. Kyler Murray is 7-0. Am I right about that?
Yes, sir.
That includes high school. That includes college. That includes the pros. So Kyler Murray's career hasn't worked out exactly like he'd wanted to, but he has to love the idea of coming home to play there. So first of all, before we talk about that, let's talk about once again what went wrong with the Cowboys in Denver, which was pretty much the same old, isn't it?
Yeah, the defense continues to betray them. There was no pass rush. They hit Bo Nix one time in that game. Now, they were compromised at the safety position. They had some backups there. They had a rookie safety who ended up getting hurt in that game, Elijah Clark. The offense, you were right. When they do play a much better team or a team with a good front seven, they struggle. When they played Carolina, which was on a home winning streak but has a really good front seven, the Cowboys struggle to run the ball. And now, 2 weeks later, they go to Denver, who has a fantastic front seven, shut them down. Dallas just did not take advantage of the passing attack. Patrick Surtain went down like 6 plays into the game with an ankle injury, and George Pickens is one-on-one with some dude that hadn't played more than one snap the whole season, and they don't throw the ball to him. Instead, they go to the other side of the field to throw to CeeDee Lamb, and that was like in a 3rd and goal situation. So it was just a whole disastrous day for Dallas.
Let me ask you about that in particular, because, look, Dak Prescott has taken his share of criticism here. There are a lot of things, to me, the biggest issue anybody should have with Dak is his failure to win in the playoffs. In the regular season, more often than not, he's been a very good quarterback. He's a very good leader. He does a lot of great things, but I hated his explanation in that on that play that you're talking about, because he said, I really don't care who's out there. I've got great receivers on either side, and so I made that play. We just didn't execute it. That doesn't wash with me, Calvin. Any quarterback in football is supposed to be cognizant of stuff like that. The coaches should be cognizant of it. We got a guy in here who's barely ever played, going against a big receiver. That's the other issue. George is a bigger receiver than CeeDee Lamb is, and at that point, you have to make that. And plus, I got to tell you, I think right now, that Pickens is the better receiver than CeeDee Lamb. He's certainly the more dynamic one, and you choose not to take advantage of that issue. That's just not good football.
No, and I like Prescott a lot, but that was a bad explanation. And Brian Schottenheimer, who I also like a lot, had a bad explanation too about, hey, you just can't target one side of the field because you want to. Well, yes, you can. Right?
Yeah, sure you can.
You can do whatever you want. Now, if you're going to get success, then that's another story. But you can do whatever you want in the football field. And in that situation, Chris Abrams' brain had played one defensive snap the whole year. And that was week 2. Then he comes into the game. It's 3rd and goal. You're 1-on-1 with George Pickens. Throw a fade. Throw a jump ball because that's what George Pickens wants. And you didn't do it. You went to CeeDee Lamb on the other side. And yes, CeeDee Lamb is an elite receiver, as we all know. But sometimes you got to use some common sense and look at what's going on the football field. And I think sometimes these guys, they overthink it a little bit. And that's what happened there. It's just part of a whole disastrous day in Denver.
I disagree with both of you guys here.
Of course you do.
You both use the word disaster on multiple occasions, and it's not a disaster. It is what this team is. They are a bad football team.
Well, the team is a disaster, Mr.
I would agree
I'm
with
trying to look like a
that.
contrarian
They are a bad football
here.
team.
They are a bad football team, and so this is the norm. The norm is that they're going to give up 40 points. And I think it says everything in the world that a week ago they beat a bad team 44-22, and then the next week not a bad team. They beat a so-so team that was without its starting quarterback for most of the game by 22, and then the next week they give up the same amount of points that they just scored, on the road. They are not a good team. And I guess I've got fatigue a little bit because we've watched the Rangers for 2 years and we've kept saying, well, if their offense ever comes around, their offense was bad. This defense is bad. It's been bad. It continues to be bad. And they traded, we'll go back to the start of the season, they traded their best player. And so none of this should be like disaster. To me implies that something was surprising. This is not surprising.
I think I was a little surprised at how when they played Washington the previous week, defensively they were a little bit better. But Washington has 2 receivers and they lost their quarterback in that game.
Right.
So and you would think that there would be some progression, but there wasn't. There was regression, and maybe it's not regression. Maybe this is who they are, like you said.
This is who they are. And I get your point that this was not Dak's best game. But quarterbacks are going to have, they're going to have one throwaway game for sure over the course of the year. The story for me remains that this is just a historically bad defense. I think that the stat I looked up yesterday when I was wasting time was this is the 9th team in NFL history to have scored to average at least 30 points a game through their first 8 games and still have a negative scoring differential. It's just historically bad. So I'll get off of my soapbox now and we can move on. But it's just, I don't, after watching that baseball game last night and seeing what good baseball again looked like and watching the Rangers for 2 years and then watching this team all year, it ain't getting better. There's nothing to solve. This is just a bad football team. End of story.
Well, I guess that just ends the podcast then. Thank you.
No, we can continue to talk about how historically bad.
Well, I'm afraid to say anything. I'm afraid you're going to correct me on my usage of words here, and then I'll just have to take a step back again because Mr. Contrarian is wanting to correct
Just stop
everybody.
calling it a disaster. They're a bad team.
A disaster. You make it sound like saying that it's a disaster. That was a disaster. That was awful. You know,
Yes,
you
it
can
was
lose
awful.
and still be bad. I mean that's it can still be if it's so. I would say that the Rangers were a disaster on offense this year.
Yes, they were a disaster.
Okay, all right then. Never mind.
It
All
was.
right. Let me just think, guys. I have to. You know,
We will come back
it's
next week to etymology
I
and
haven't
word
had enough
usage.
sleep here, and so I'm still trying to process everything.
I
And so
am too,
I'm
because
having
that
to
was an
worry
amazing
now that
game
whatever
last
I
night.
say, Evan's going to say, no, you used the wrong word. There.
I feel like that, last week we did the thing with the roller coaster of the season, and I think there's still this hope that hey, if something just clicks for the Cowboys, I think we can pass judgment. This team is not good.
Well, we know that. I mean, I've
Yeah.
said that from the very beginning of the season. The defense is not good enough to play to go anywhere in the playoffs. The offense is good enough, but then the offense wasn't any good in Denver. You know, they
It was a
simply can't.
disaster of a performance by the offense.
Thank you. You just can't expect them to keep carrying that on. I mean,
Right.
and in Dak's defense in that game, he's under duress the entire game. He got hit like 8 times, and was just rushing to get the ball away, and on many other occasions. So
I got a question.
yeah.
Question.
Go
Can
ahead.
you guys talk about this later on? Hopefully you will. After that game last night, the World Series game, they talked to Freddie Freeman and they talked to Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't, and I understand why they talked to Ohtani, but I would rather have talked to Klein, the pitcher, who they were just praising.
Yeah,
throughout
Calvin, that's a great point. And I went to one of the reasons I couldn't fall asleep after the game was I said that exact thing.
Yeah.
I know you have to talk to Ohtani. I know you have to talk to Freeman there. But God, you talk about surprises, right?
Yeah.
Will Klein going 4.5 innings or whatever it was that he finished up with. That was the heroic the truly heroic performance I would have loved to have heard from him on TV.
Yeah. Nothing against Ohtani, because when they talked, because I fell asleep throughout the extra innings, and then they're talking to Ohtani. I was like, I remember he hit 2 home runs, and then they showed the graphic. He was on base 9 times. I was like, oh my gosh, 9 times? So I understood it immediately. But as you're watching the game, it was all about Klein and when someone was going to fold. So if Ohtani, so I would have liked to talk to Klein.
I think in their defense, I think he had fainted and was unavailable.
You what, Kevin? I couldn't hear you.
He fainted and was unavailable for the interviews. No, we will talk about that, Calvin. We'll get around to that. But Calvin, let me ask you this: in that game, so
baseball game or the Cowboys game?
The Cowboys game.
Okay,
the game that was not a disaster. So there's no running, no Javonte Williams, coming back home to make a big splash. The Cowboys couldn't do either. They couldn't run, they couldn't throw, so how much of this problem is coming back to roost? I hate to say there's any problems with the offense, but they seem to me that this year that they're going to struggle with their pass blocking. If you got a good pass rush, that's going to be an issue. But at least they're going to be a good, running team. And this is twice now where they couldn't run the ball. Twice in the last 3 weeks where they couldn't do that. So, are there problems in the offensive line?
In that game in Denver, they didn't have the starting center, Cooper Beebe. He's supposed to come back for the Arizona game Monday night. So you could say, okay, you didn't have your starting center, and he's the focal point of the line protections and all that. When they play, Carolina beat them up good because they have a good front. Now, so did the New York Jets, but the Cowboys were able to run against the Jets, right? And they had a long run there from Williams near the end of the half in that game. So I don't know if it's a quote-unquote blueprint to stop the Cowboys, but if you have big defensive linemen who can stop the run, who can two-gap, and they have linebackers to shoot the gaps and all those types of things, it's going to be hard for you to run the ball. And it's going to be hard for you to do play-action pass, which is what Dak Prescott likes to do. So, I mean, I was not a big fan of Javonte Williams when they signed him in free agency, but now I am a fan because he's a very good running back. He had an ACL 2 years ago, so it took a while for him to come back from that. But we'll find out against Arizona. I think the jury's still out on if the running game is going to go downward. And if that's the case, then this is going to be a really disastrous season because the only thing the Cowboys have got going for them was that running game to set up the passing attack. And that's why Dak Prescott was in the conversation for the MVP and the Comeback Player of the Year award and those kinds of things. And the reason why George Pickens can say, "Hey, give me my money," because look how great of a receiver I am. But I think we got to give him maybe another game or two because they're going to play Arizona, they're going to play Vegas, get a bye. They're going to play Arizona, get a bye, then go to Vegas, and then the real season starts. So we'll find out. But I just think, like I said, give him 2 more weeks before we say the running game's got troubles.
Yeah. Right before we have to get to this point, our pal Tim Cowlishaw brought it up this week and said that that George Pickens has been a revelation. Right? I don't think anybody could complain about the job that he has done. That pick, he's been a Boy Scout on the field, and he has been terrific. As I said earlier, I think he's their best receiver. I think he's better than CeeDee Lamb this year, and I think that, of course, everybody sees that it's a contract year for him. And as Tim pointed out, he's probably going to get $30 million. I'm just going to assume that let's say that number is correct. The Cowboys clearly can't pay somebody else in the offense that kind of money. Even Jerry Jones has to understand that, right? And you're going to have to spend more money on the defense. There's already a disproportionate amount of that cap going to Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb. So they can't do 3. But can Jerry bring himself, as Tim proposed, to trade him before the deadline, which is Tuesday as we're taping, which is today, correct? As we're taping this,
a week from today, yes.
A week from today. So can Jerry Jones? I say can. Would Jerry Jones trade him? Would he signal that the season's over? We can't make it. Can we trade him?
Well, do both of you guys agree with Tim's premise before we get into that?
Oh, I think all along you can't trade the guy. You can't sign the guy. It's just going to cost you too much money. That was my point all along when in the draft, even, was that you don't want to draft a guy with your first round pick, not on this team, who you think is an alpha male receiver, a guy who's a number one, because you've already committed all this money to CeeDee Lamb. And you needed a guy who would have the kind of personality, kind of like Michael Gallup did, who's happy to be the number 2 and take on that role. Well, now you've got 2 guys. They're getting along just fine, seemingly. So that's not the issue. But the issue is that he's going to want to be paid like a number 1 receiver, and you just simply can't commit that much money to it under the cap. So yeah, I'm fine with them trading. But what you're saying is, if you do that, is season's over, white flag, we're out. We're just going to try to, hold on here and see what happens, because unless you're going to trade him for like a linebacker or, something like that, but why would no team that's going to want a rental player in, George Pickens, which is what he essentially be, is a contending team. They're not going to give you away a good piece, right? So you have to be getting a draft pick in that situation. So getting a draft pick is obviously not helping you this year. You're waving the white flag. Can Jerry wave the white flag?
And Calvin, do you agree with the premise before you answer that question?
I understand the thought process. Yes, I do. It kind of, Jerry was asked a similar question after the game in Denver. Would you, they do this in baseball, right? You're not contending. It's the trade deadline in early August or whenever the deadline is, and boom, we're getting rid of our ace who's 24 years old so we can get, prospects, or, what I'm saying. And in this case, the Cowboys would have to, right now, if the draft started today, the Cowboys would have the 15th pick of the draft, right? And then they would have Green Bay's, which would be in the low 20s or whatever, 27, 28 or whatever. So you're picking in the same place as you always are, right? Because you're a middle of the road team. Pickens, as I said earlier, is the only trade asset to get another pick, like a second-round pick or a third-round pick, right? Or you can get a fourth-round pick, which is what you gave up to get Jonathan Mingo, right? So at some point you need to see what he could do, right? So at this stage, I can't foresee Jerry saying, let's do the white flag, we're tanking. Because I personally think when you traded Micah Parsons in August, you were tanking. You don't trade your best player on your team and then try to tell the fan base and the media, oh, we're going to compete for a playoff spot. No, that doesn't work that way. So
yeah, but that's what he did say.
That's what he did say, right? So, and look where they are, right? They got 3 wins. So this is, so I don't foresee, to answer your question, I don't foresee them tanking in a sense like trading Pickens and Jalen Tolbert and Sam Williams, guys of that nature, to get more picks, right? I do agree with Tim's column that, yeah, trade him. Why not? Because your season's not going anywhere. But when have we ever known Jerry Jones to quit on anything, and not to be optimistic
but that's the
about
issue,
something.
is that because of that and I never am sure, of course, Jerry's worst character trait is his ego, number one. Number two is his optimism, or at least what I've always perceived as his optimism. He always, it's hard to tell how much of that is just salesmanship, but his attitude that, oh, this will work out, everything will be fine. But here's what's going to end up happening here. They're not going to make the playoffs, but they're going to play well enough that they're going to be a team that's going to hit around 14 or 15, as Calvin pointed out. And then they're going to lose George Pickens because he's going to sign with somebody else for a lot of money. They can't afford to give him that money. And they will have given up a third-round draft pick to get him for nothing. Because it doesn't matter how well George Pickens plays this year. If they're not going to the playoffs, then they wasted that third-round pick. They could have missed the playoffs with Jalen Tolbert as the second receiver, right? So
you traded for George Pickens with the intent to win this year. That's why you got a rental player.
Sure, absolutely.
Right.
You're not winning this year.
You can't make that deal and trade Micah Parsons at 2 and then end up with nothing in the deal. And that's the problem here. They're gonna Jerry would have to eat some crow to do that, but that's the smart play. That's the thing you have to do to prepare for next year, to pile up even more picks. Now, I guess you could say, well, we're going to get a third-round pick if he signs someplace else anyway. So, boom, we get that back. But I would also point out that maybe there's somebody out there who would do what the Cowboys did when they traded for Amari Cooper, giving up a first-round pick for him when he was in a contract year. And that worked out great for the Cowboys. That Cooper was played very well, turned the team around. And that's if you could get a second-round pick, or better for George Pickens right now, to me, you have to do that.
I think you just need to apply the baseball principle, as Calvin said. This is not a playoff team. It should be right now in the market to trade every rental asset that it has to try and stockpile as many picks as possible, because otherwise they are going to be stuck in this cycle really, for another 2 or 3 years or however long. And then, you get to a point where you're going to be aging out of Dak's window. So I just think that the Cowboys need to make some hard decisions. And I don't think that Jerry, as a GM, is capable of doing that. But I think Tim is absolutely right. You got this guy. He has performed for you. Leverage it into something that will make you eventually a better team. He's not making you a better team right now. He's making you a better offense, but not a better team.
Right, before we get out of here, I want to ask Calvin one last question. Will Kyler Murray remain undefeated at Jerry World after Monday night?
Last year, or maybe 2 years ago when they played, I picked Arizona and they won, and I'm going to do it again. So, and I don't believe Arizona's any good, so I think Cowboys will win. However, for the sake of this exercise and for our picks in the paper, I'm picking Arizona because you don't go against Kyler Murray at AT&T.
How many wins against the Cowboys at AT&T does he have?
2.
2. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's won at Allen High School. He's won at Texas Tech.
Texas Tech, yeah.
And now
But
he's won-
I was wondering how many as an NFL quarterback.
Hold on a minute. Kyler Murray did not play at Texas Tech.
I mean,
He played
Oklahoma.
at Texas A&M,
Oklahoma.
Texas A&M, and Oklahoma.
Oh, I'm sorry, Texas A&M. Sorry,
that's kind of all right. You know,
sorry,
he's just a local guy. He's just a legend. Just the greatest high school quarterback in Texas football history.
We were thinking about Patrick Mahomes. Well, calm down.
No, Kyler Murray I thought was more accomplished, right, in high school, wasn't he?
Wasn't
Kyler?
he?
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah, the greatest high school quarterback in Texas high school football history.
Yeah.
All right, our next guest, Shawn McFarland, would know that, and he's from Massachusetts. So, anyway. All right, that's going to do it for the Cowboys segment of our podcast. We appreciate y'all turning in. And Calvin, thanks for coming in and sitting with us, even though Evan yelled at us the whole podcast.
Go Cowboys.
All right, we're going to move over now and talk about the colleges. Shawn McFarland is joining us now. Shawn was with me in Baton Rouge last week. That was Shawn's first trip to Louisiana, and one of many for me. And you know, it's always fun to go into another country. I have always said, especially southern Louisiana, not so much northern Louisiana, but southern Louisiana is just like another country. It is such an interesting experience to go there and to be part of all of that. The food, the culture, just everything. It's really cool. So it's just a different place, and I like it. So anyway, we go to Baton Rouge. It's been so long since I'd been there for a game. I couldn't even remember exactly when it was. 1986, maybe is when it was the last time I was there for a game. Also, a Texas A&M game. They're really the only school in this state that plays LSU on a regular basis. The entire decade of the 60s, as a matter of fact, they played there every year. Can you imagine that agreement? Okay, we'll come to your place and play every year for 10 years. I don't know what was getting into A&M's heads when they did that, but it's a tough place to play. The Aggies went in there in the first half, a pretty a competitive game in the first half, but it just felt, Shawn, at least it did to me, that A&M just keeps shooting themselves in the foot here. They are the better team. I think Garrett Nussmeier is a really nice quarterback. You give him enough time, I think he can do a lot of things for you. But Marcel Reed was playing at a pretty high level in the first half, got some bad luck. A couple of tip passes went for interceptions, but, you know, the block punt for the safety, you know, throwing one of the interceptions down there in the end zone when they should have scored, it goes back the other way. And then, you know, Nussmeier made a great throw to set up another touchdown, even though that it was really close at the half and LSU was in fact leading. I really felt like going into the second half, if the Aggies would just kind of cut out the mistakes, this game was very winnable for them, and certainly it was.
Yeah, and I think it says something about how good this A&M team is in the sense that like that second quarter I think was one of the worst quarters of football I've seen by like a team as good as A&M, right? You mentioned the block punt, that roughing call, you know, when LSU was about to punt and that gave them extra life. Just the interceptions, the mistakes they made in that quarter, like they just looked lost for 15 straight minutes. And then to come back and outscore them 35-0 in the second half, save for that, you know, last minute touchdown LSU had. I think that's the mark of a good team and a well-coached team, that they're able to, you know, completely shake off. I think a quarter at a stadium like that, at a venue like that would probably derail most teams.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think, excuse me, that's one of the things that Mike Elko talked about after the game, was that the second half was their best half of the season. They put it all together. I thought the second half, this is what this team could be. It's a very good defensive team, and it is a very explosive offensive team. Those two receivers, Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver, and probably Concepcion in particular, who also had, of course, the punt return for a touchdown. The Aggies have not had two wide receivers like that, except for Mike Evans and Ryan Swope for Johnny Manziel. And that used to be some of the talk back then was, how good is Johnny Manziel really, or is it really, Mike Evans, who has gone on to a long career in the NFL, been a dynamic receiver there. But I just, the Aggies have not had these kind of playmakers on offense over the years, except for a guy like Johnny Manziel. So this is different for them, and this is, to me, the difference maker for the Aggies going forward, because I do believe that that's what makes this thing really work going forward, and makes you think that it'll be different. Although, and I love what Mike Elko said going into the week, going into the game, which was basically, our vision is not matched up with our reality, in which he kind of said the unspoken at A&M, which is that, you know what, we always get ourselves in a position like this, and we just can't ever finish it off. Even if you went back to the to the teams that had beaten LSU in Baton Rouge in 92 and 94, R.C. Slocum teams, over that 4-year period that the Aggies didn't lose a Southwest Conference game. But in 92, they went 11-0 and then lost in the Cotton Bowl to Notre Dame. In 94, they went 10-0-1, but they were ineligible for the postseason because of a job scandal in the summer job scandal. So they haven't won a national title since 1939. That's a long time ago. So is this team, in your estimation, capable of winning a national title?
Well, I think it has the pieces, right? And I think you mentioned the explosiveness and the speed, right? And that's something Mike Elko said was a priority for them, was to find that speed, to find that athleticism. He said it's something that the teams that make deep runs, the teams that win, have. And you look at last year, right? Texas made the Final Four, and they had Matthew Golden and Isaiah Bond. Ohio State won it all. They had, Jeremiah Smith and Trevion Henderson, like these guys with that 4.3, 4.4 speed. And I think that when you combine that with the physicality they play with, I think they have good quarterback play in Marcel Reed. And I know we'll talk about Texas in a little bit, but like you look at Texas right now, like they don't have that speed, they don't have that athleticism, and it's so palpable in some of these games where they don't have guys like Concepcion or Craver or even Marcel Reed. I don't know how fast he's timed at, but he can move. He outran the entire LSU secondary on Saturday night on that 41-yard run. Like you need horses like that to win in the SEC, to win at the highest level of college football. And like I think that is such a separator if you have those athletes. And they're not just athletes, they're talented receivers, and Marcel Reed can throw it too. When you have that combination plus everything else that we think A&M has, whether it's the mentality and the more intrinsic side of things. I think that's a good combination. Now, to Mike Elko's point and kind of what you wrote about is like, you got to go out and prove it. You got to go and finish strong and not fall victim to a struggling Texas team late in the season or a Missouri team like that. But that's, they are in a position to make good on that decree.
Yeah, they can't screw this up, because it does set up for them well. They have some. It's not a cakewalk, because, as you said, they have Missouri, but Missouri's missing its starting quarterback now, so that's certainly a very winnable game for them. And they have Samford, which is obviously a cupcake, and you're finished against Texas, and I'm missing a game in there.
South Carolina.
And South Carolina has played pretty well this year. They've kind of been up and down, but they're a spoiler. So those kind of things could happen. But it's certainly possible in that last game of the regular season against Texas in Austin that, it's a rivalry game, and that just sets up as a deal where Texas, like it did against Oklahoma, puts together an exceptional effort on both sides of the ball and pulls off the upset. I just can't bet that way. To me, it looks like the Aggies can win out. Texas will be out of it by then. They will have lost in Athens. They're just, in my mind, no way they can win there.
You're assuming that they win against Vanderbilt, but we'll talk.
Well, yeah, no, I'm not assuming that either. I
Yeah.
just didn't get to there, Mr. Correction. But it is. I do think that Texas is really going to struggle here. Just for the reasons that Shawn said. I mean, one of the main reasons is that Arch Manning has not been able to lift this team. If anything, he's been a little bit of a drag upon it. And now there's still a question, I guess, at this point as we're taping this, whether he's even going to play. So let's talk a little bit about Texas now. Obviously that was a huge comeback to win that game in overtime. Just kind of an unbelievable thing. I can't imagine how Mississippi State felt about that, giving up 17.
It was a implosion of enormous standards. I cannot fathom how Mississippi State lost a 17-point fourth quarter lead. I just can't.
Well, and that's what, if you remember, that was really Arch Manning's big game last year, right? It was against Mississippi State. That was the one qualifier everybody said, well, we're not really going to count, this game against, Louisiana Tech. We're going to talk about the fact that, well, even if it is Mississippi State, he looked terrific in that game. Well, by the time that was over, he looked pretty terrific that one as well. I think he threw for 356 yards and threw 3 touchdown passes and ran for another. So if he could play Mississippi State every week, he'd be doing great. But that's not been the case. So we don't know if he's going to play or not. But Vanderbilt is playing at a very high clip this year. They've been a kind of a revelation too. They have their own Heisman Trophy caliber quarterback. So I would pick Vanderbilt to win that game there. I just don't. I don't think that Texas can. I don't think Texas was just kind of teetered on. Well, we're going to make. They've made comebacks now. They did it against Kentucky. They did it against Mississippi State. But this is a different animal now. And I think that also against Oklahoma, there's always the factor of playing at the state fair. That's always, that's kind of a
listen. I think you can make the case right now that the only way that Texas beats A&M is that rivalry factor, because there's not, based on the way these two teams are playing, it's not a level playing field. So I was almost going to intercede and ask you two guys, is the tougher game for A&M the Missouri game on the road or the Texas game on the road?
Oh, I don't think Missouri game now with the quarterback out. I just don't see that as a big an issue. It doesn't mean they couldn't lose that game. They surely can. We've seen weirder things happen this year. I'm not saying that the A&M is going to run the table. I would bet that way, but I just don't think that you can. There have been too many weird things happening in college football the last few years to say that that's the case. But I do think that the Aggies are good enough to do that. It's always been a question of what you wanted from them. Like even last year, they're really kind of in the same position this year that they were last year. They're just one game off of that. They had a big win in Kyle Field over LSU last year. They made them 7-1, and then the wheels came off, right? And so then they lost, their last 3, SEC games, and then lost in the bowl game to USC. So I don't see that happening this year. That team last year seemed a little bit kind of like smoke and mirrors, and it was Mike Elko's first year. I got to tell you, I don't know, Shawn, you were sitting in there with me in the press conference afterward. Elko's a funny guy. You made the comment that he's like a Northeasterner. He's like he's real no nonsense, but he's funny. And at one point, we're asking questions, and people are in this little bitty room we're all shoved into, and it finally turns to the woman that's running the press conference and says, "You want to run this like a real press conference?" And he said it just bang. Just like that. And the next thing you know, she's like, "Yes, sir." And she's recognizing people, and they're asking the questions at that point. But he was not the first pick for that job. Ross Bjork, the former athletic director, had wanted to hire Mark Stoops, the Kentucky coach. And Mark Stoops was telling everybody, "Yeah, I'm out of here. I'm on my way to College Station." And then a few boosters got together and said, hold on a minute. We want Mike Elko. We know him. He was here before. He's a better fit. I criticized that when it happened. I said the Aggies have got to stop hiring people because they're good fits. They just got to hire good football coaches, which I thought they had done with Jimbo Fisher, and it turned out I was wrong about that too. So, but he has been, to me, a revelation. He's done a great job there. I think it's funny that the players call him Elko. They don't say Mike. They don't say coach. They say Elko, which makes it sound like he's some kind of character. And I think maybe he is.
Yeah, I talked to a lot of high school football coaches about Elko, and they love him. Like the high school coaches in the state love him. For I think the same reasons like we got a kick out of him on Friday night. Like he's genuine, he's authentic. It doesn't nothing feels put on or an act, as we look at some coaches who may have been fired this weekend who may have faked a southern accent at one point in their careers. Like I think like the high school coaches recognize that. I think the players recognize that when a coach is genuine in themselves in a way that Mike Elko is. And I think that really matters in college football. Like you can be the best schemes guy, the best X's and O's guy, but if you're not a guy that guys want to play for and people want to have a relationship with, I'm not sure any of that matters. And it just seems like in the 2 years Mike Elko's been here, that personality and that wit, that everything he brings kind of checks those boxes.
You can't sell BS anymore.
Yeah.
Because players have too many options, and even if you charm your way into their houses and into their hearts for a year, they're gone after a year when they see through it. And I think that was a big part of Brian Kelly's downfall at LSU. He alienated his players, he alienated former players. And yeah, I think that you look at the best coaches now, they're authentic.
Well, we didn't even say anything about the fact that, they got Brian Kelly fired within 24 hours, which is the big difference between them and Texas is that I think Texas got Billy Napier a couple more games. So that's another thing that the difference between the Aggies and the Longhorns this year.
Although our old friend Tim Brando had posted a long tweet on Tuesday afternoon that there would be some coordinators fired, but that Brian Kelly was not going to be fired.
Well, he was off a little bit.
He was off just a little bit. I even thought, looking at the body language of Brian Kelly in the second half of that game, that he looked like a man who was resigned to his fate.
Well, Shawn thought at one point on the punt return he saw Kelly throw his headset down. We couldn't see the replay on that confirmed.
Yeah, I don't know who spiked it. I ended up just going with a LSU staffer spiked their headset, but regardless, someone was pissed off, and I think that kind of fits the mood pretty well.
There were plenty of shots of on the broadcast of Kelly getting in different coaches' faces and different players' faces, and obviously
to hear that.
Nussmeier wasn't happy about being pulled from that game, and basically, when you get to a point where you just kind of blow off the coach, you know that the program's lost, and that's kind of what Garrett Nussmeier had done in that situation.
It's funny. My son, the former quarterback, my oldest son, he loves Garrett Nussmeier, and I like him too. That 41-yard throw he made to set up the touchdown, which may have been their last. Well, before that one at the very end of the game, might have been their last touchdown. I mean, that guy was well covered, Barry and Brown, and he dropped that ball right on him. I mean, it was a perfect throw. I do think that he's got a future in the NFL, so at least he'll have that. Let's talk a little bit about SMU.
He's going to need some rehab first from psychological abuse.
Yeah. I was, and one last thing about being there at LSU. Boy, what a professionally run operation that is at Tiger Stadium, Death Valley. I mean, from top to bottom, people were, first of all, they were friendly and helpful, but they had I don't know, people don't know this kind of thing anymore, but they have you used to have PA in every press box, and they would tell you what was going on during the game. Well, now people don't do that anymore, I guess, because they don't want to pay them. But they had that in there. They're extremely helpful for such a crazy environment and such a place known for the wild fan base and everything that happens there, and how they have to caution them not to be throwing stuff on the field all the time, and not just tortillas either. That it's first rate in my book. So
There's great signage everywhere. That was the one thing I remarked. The
yes,
things I get
they were
excited about now are when I get lost trying to find my way to a press. Great signage all over the place,
great.
and I genuinely appreciate that.
This is how we do things in the SEC. You guys will get used to it.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. So let's talk a little bit about SMU this week. They've got Miami coming to town. Shawn will be in Austin. I will be over at the SMU Miami to see how that goes. The Mustangs simply could not lose to Wake Forest. My gosh, I know that Wake Forest is having a nice little year here, but you can't just score 13 points against those guys. That's terrible. A terrible loss for SMU. Disastrous loss. I can say that. I hope, and put their season right on the brink. They can still do something here, maybe, if they were to upset Miami, which Miami's upsettable. We've seen that already. So that
They're upsettable because they're undisciplined and because Carson Beck can make mistakes. Yes, they are very upsettable.
Evans has an old grudge against Carson Beck because of his days at
I just don't
Georgia.
think I don't think he's a great quarterback. But
Well, he's here's who he is. He's Vinny Testaverde. Maybe not quite that good, but that's what Vinny Testaverde was. A guy who could really sling it and really do some nice things, and then throw the most inexplicable interception you could possibly imagine.
Yeah.
He did that at Miami, as a matter of fact. Then he did it in the pros as well.
I also think that the Miami's just too undisciplined under Cristobal. I think they make some really stupid penalties and can shoot themselves in the foot with that. But they are obviously a very talented team, and look, this is, for all intents and purposes, this is SMU's season here. If they lose this, they're done.
Yeah, that's it. They can still have a nice season. They can still go to a bowl game, and I'm assuming they will. But they were hoping for better than that after making such a big splash in their first year in the ACC. They finally lost a game in the ACC. They were 11-0 in the regular season. And coming off the win at Clemson, I just really thought, well, maybe they've turned this around now, and now they're headed in the right direction. They're offensively very good. Kevin Jennings is a very dynamic quarterback, so a really good player. Their defense was a big question. They just hadn't played well at all this year. They looked terrible against TCU defensively. And then they go out and not only does the defense do a really good job against Wake Forest, the offense just does nothing. So that was a critical loss for SMU. What we're down to now in this state is basically, in my mind, the two best teams are Texas A&M and Texas Tech. I think that both of those teams have an opportunity to go to make the playoffs. I think that the Red Raiders lost at Arizona State. Arizona State was 4-0 against teams from Texas until Houston beat them there last week. My alma mater. Houston's 7-1. What to make of that?
When I went down there and covered Houston, Texas Tech, and I mean Tech ended up really pulling away. But I thought Houston looked good. I don't think they're at a Texas Tech level, of course. But I'd probably have no issue calling them the third best team in the state right now.
Boy,
might be
what
better
a compliment! The third best team in the state.
Yeah.
Hey, raise the
banner.
This isn't Georgia, pal.
We run football. We run football.
Georgia, and you got Georgia, and then like a bunch of high school teams.
I'm sorry. You want to try that again?
Well, Georgia Tech's having a nice little season. Okay, we'll give them that. Yeah, they are. Georgia Tech's in a better place right now than SMU is in the ACC. So
far better. And Tech doesn't. I don't think Tech has a big challenge. In front. They are in the driver's seat in the ACC now.
Yeah.
Haynes King, former A&M quarterback.
Oh,
I
yeah.
really like Haynes King. I mean, I know they're basically running RPO and option stuff, but I really like Haynes King.
Well, it's not much not to like about it. He just had some really bad luck. He's broken a leg. He's just had some injury situation. And of course, he's not a very, I mean, he's tall. He's not a very big guy. And I think that has probably hurt him a little bit because he's kind of a fearless player. And he throws himself into lots of bad situations. But yeah, it's hard not to like what they've done there at Georgia Tech. That's a fun operation to watch. I always when someone's running something different from what everybody else is doing, that's always a really fun thing to watch. Speaking of which, we should, before we get out of college, just also mention the fact that UNT, which is also 7-1, playing Navy this week, so that'll be a fun game up
Navy's
there in Denton. What were you saying? You just muted yourself, Evan. At any rate, there's some really big games this weekend for teams. Could be deciding games for their season, whether they are still in the contention for the playoffs or if they're just going to have a nice little season and go to a nice little bowl game.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned teams running things differently. Navy, triple option team against a UNT team that you got Drew Menstermaker throwing for 600 yards, and just lighting the
600
world on
yards,
fire.
608 yards.
608 yards, yeah.
Third of a mile. I think I just point that out. That is a lot of passes. He's had a phenomenal year there, and Eric Morris has as well. And Shawn and I think talked about this in the press box a little bit, and I'm just going to go ahead and say this out loud. The Mean Green need to enjoy this while they can. This is maybe not going to be the same situation next year, so really enjoy it these last few weeks of this season. This has been a lot of fun to watch them have so much success. It's going to be great.
Podcast headline: columnist does not believe in UNT.
No, I think I believe in them right now. I believe in them in this season. That's not my point. My point is that Eric Morris is going to be a very desirable head coach for somebody to hire after this season. There's a lot of openings in college football already. As a matter of fact, even if I wanted to fire my football coach, I don't think I could do that now, simply because of all the choices that are lining up in front of them. There's 5 openings now, 5 major openings in college football. This is going to be a really volatile offseason. We're going to see a lot of movement. It's just crazy now what's happening here.
One word answer for both of you. Where
What?
does Lane Kiffin coach in 2026?
I'm not giving it whatever it is. What'd you say?
One
I think
word
he sticks
answer.
at Ole Miss.
Stays at Ole Miss. Oh, I like that. Evan thinks he's a natural for Florida.
Is Ole Miss a better job than Florida right now? Probably not,
No.
but like,
I think the thing just shut you down like that. That's nice, Evan. No,
I don't think it is. I don't think it is. I mean, I think Ole Miss is he's done a great job at Ole Miss, and we're getting deeper into this than I think. But I do think that Lane Kiffin is the natural successor to the Steve Spurrier era at Florida. Era. I'm sorry. The Steve Spurrier era at Florida. He is the 21st century evil genius. It's a perfect fit. And when Florida is at its height, it's one of the 5 best jobs in the country. And so that's why I say Ole Miss is not a better job than Florida.
Shawn, Evan and I had discussed this last week. I've always compared Florida to Texas. To me, it is the flagship school in a state that is known for its high school talent. It has a huge, it has everything that Texas does, and it also, along with that, a little bit of that role as an underachiever. They don't always match up with all their resources, and I can say the same thing about Texas A&M, even more so than Texas. So
I think I'm poisoned because Florida hasn't been good my entire adult life and most of my high school life too.
Well, you got
Um,
you got to go back to Tim Tebow for their
yeah,
last time they were any good. So there's no question about that. They just in Mississippi, you don't have the talent base in Mississippi that you do in Florida to draw from. Now you don't have anybody challenging you like Florida State and Miami either. That's three really good programs, or should be three really good programs in one state. But Florida State's down now. Miami's up right now, but it's hard for Miami, a small school. It's a little bit like the SMU situation.
It's a lot like the Texas situation, the Texas, Oklahoma, A&M triangulation, right? With those three schools, they've always competed for the same recruits. And as Kevin has always said, one's usually up and one is down, and that's what the state of Florida has often been like. Although in the '90s, all three of them were just amazing programs. And I know that's 30 years ago. I just think that you put Lane Kiffin's personality at Florida, you bring the old ball coach kind of back out of the shadows and let them connect. And boy, you've got a dynamic recruiting approach, or a dynamic recruiting element there. And I just think you bring the son and gun. It's just to me such a natural fit. It terrifies me as a Georgia fan, but it's a natural fit, and I think it would be fun to watch.
Yeah, that would be fun. All right, let's talk about the World Series last night.
Speaking of fun things to watch,
yeah, that was a crazy game. I have to admit, I had to do a few things. I didn't really turn it on. I was trying to watch the Mavericks game, which was unwatchable. So I didn't really turn on the World Series until the seventh inning. And little did I know that I hadn't even missed half the game. From that point on, that was really remarkable. Everything that happened in that. Shawn, before you got on, when we were talking earlier in the podcast, Calvin Watkins was complaining that Will Klein, the hero of the game for the Dodgers, really, even with everything that Freddie Freeman did and that Shohei Ohtani did, that this guy comes in and throws 4 to third innings, and it never thrown. I guess, as we see here, he never thrown more than 30 pitches in a game, maybe.
I think the last time he threw as many pitches, or the last time he had gone 4 innings, was in 2020, 2 days before COVID hit, when he was at where he pitched in College, Eastern Illinois, I believe.
Yeah. So to turn in that kind of performance was really phenomenal. It's funny, and you guys being baseball guys, I'd like to get your thoughts on this, but there were some really great defensive plays in that game. Several,
Tremendous, just absolutely tremendous plays.
Yeah, guys throwing out the plate, guys, caught stealing. There were just all kinds of plays left and right. Well, I got to tell you, when you watch guys running the bases, I'm just thinking, one of the things I love about Wyatt Langford is that he is running full out all the time. It doesn't matter what the play is, he is running as hard, and he's fast anyway. It's not just that he's fast, he's running as hard as he can. I see too many guys running the bases, and they kind of running, and then they look, okay, now I'm going to run really fast now, But it's like when David Schneider gets thrown out at the plate on that play, it's just like, man, he looks like he's coasting around the bases. And maybe that's as fast as he can run. I don't know. I just got to see these guys run harder.
Yeah, I didn't think he was coasting. I thought I gave all the credit on all of those to all the defensive plays. And listen, I give credit on a lot of that also to both teams taking the approach, you got to make things happen. These are games where you got to make things happen. There was nothing wrong with Kiner Falefa running. There was nothing wrong with what Dodger got thrown out at third base.
Gosh, I
I
can't
can't
remember.
remember. I thought they were all really aggressive base running plays. They're, as far as Schneider got thrown out at home plate, I get it. It's a tremendous go and get by Teoscar, who I think is really underrated, and a great relay by Tommy Edman, who was a Gold Glove winner. But those teams make things happen. And the other thing for me that just stood out again, and has stood out all series, is the pitch, the plate discipline, and the willingness to do what is asked in a situation. Hit the ball to the right side. Not just like a give up. hit the ball to the right side. But if the situation calls for it, hit the ball hard through the right side. It's allowed to get a hit. We're not asking for a productive out. We're asking for you to take an intelligent approach. And those two teams have taken great approaches at the plate. The defense has been phenomenal. And obviously there have been just some superhuman pitching performances from Yamamoto, who was willing to go in and pitch the 19th, the 19th, right? It would have been the 19th if
Right.
he'd gotten in the game. 2 days after he pitched a complete game. Just a great and a delightful game that kept me up till 2:00 in the morning and probably kept me up another hour just thinking about it. But yeah, what a delight that was.
I want to ask this question. Didn't they make a mistake earlier in the game? You sack bunt Edmund to third, and then you have a call come up and let him swing away at that point. It's like, and I'm with the broadcast there. It's like if you bunt the guy to third, why not try to bunt him home? It's not like what makes you think that Calder's going to drive a ball here?
I think that you're playing for him to get a ball in the air to the outfield. I don't have an issue with that. I don't know that I'm going to try and squeeze it there. I mean, because in that situation, you're taking two chances. If you get the runner thrown out at home in a squeeze play, then you've shot yourself in the foot. I don't have a problem with trying to get a sac fly there, and then you are bringing up Ohtani after that. So you don't want to take
get that.
that.
You don't want to lose the guy from third base, but and maybe because the bunt that got him to third was unbelievable.
But Rojas is by far the best bunter on that team.
Yeah, well, there's no question about that. I mean, that ball almost hit him in the neck.
And what a great bunt. It was a great bunt, but I don't think that you can count on everybody to do that.
But that's the thing. Shouldn't we be able to count on everybody to do that? All that time it's spent in spring training, it's like nobody's working on getting a bunt down, Well, let's all work around taking our hacks here. Let's all just get up here and be hacking away. That's the Ranger way.
Shawn, as you know, like me, as a fellow young person.
Right, yeah.
Kevin likes to yell at clouds as like an old man sometimes. Bunt them all!
Well, were you not just yelling right before that about hitting the ball to the right side of the infield?
I think it was great situational hitting, but I really don't have a problem with not trying for a suicide squeeze or even a safety squeeze.
I think that's one of the most if we want excitement, what's more exciting than that?
Look, if the game ends on that, it's a great play, but I think the chances of it being successful are limited.
I was really worried that at the end of that game would end up being something stupid like the bases are loaded and you walk and run in.
Right.
I mean, that would be the world's worst if that had happened. Although I did think it was funny that earlier in the game they walked Freddie Freeman. They walked Mookie Betts to get to Freddie Freeman. It's like, has this ever happened that someone has walked the guy in front of Freddie Freeman? I mean, holy cow. I thought that was unbelievable. So I was not surprised at all that he was the one that ended it. You shouldn't be. I mean, he hit a grand slam as a walk-off in the World Series in Game 1 last year.
And again, we're picking nits on an incredible game. If I had one issue with anything, it's that in the 18th inning, you're putting your pitcher under enormous pressure anyway. I'm walking once the first batter reaches, I'm walking my way through Ohtani and Betts to set up whatever I can potentially set up in terms of force plays, but I'm not doing it by having the guy pitch around. I just think that when you start asking a guy to pitch around and get guys to swing at pitches outside the zone, you don't set them up for success.
No, I agree with that. I thought, well, I didn't agree with the broadcast when they said, "Oh, if Ohtani's going to lead off the inning, then it brings up the question: so do I pitch to him or not?" It's like, no, it's extra innings. If you're afraid of him hitting a home run with runners on base, why wouldn't you be afraid of him hitting a home run when there's nobody on base? One run is all it takes, and that leads me to the last question. We got to get out of here. Is that I'm a big defender of Babe Ruth. He was a personal friend of mine, and And I just want to say,
I'm a big defender of Babe Ruth. I didn't know there was a case against Babe Ruth.
well, people always want to take him off his perch, right? First it was Barry Bonds, and now it's Shohei Ohtani.
You might take him off with Shohei, but go ahead.
Well, that's my point is that obviously the thing about Babe Ruth and what he did in his time, he dwarfed all the other players, and he dwarfed entire teams in baseball. So you cannot take that away. But I will say this: I think what Shohei Ohtani is doing right now, I'm not going to say that makes him a better player than Babe Ruth. I'm saying that there has never been anybody who's been able to do this all at once. Babe Ruth, of course, was a great pitcher before he became a hitter full time. They didn't ask him to pitch after that. He did on occasion, but not on a regular basis. But it is just unbelievable to watch Ohtani do what he's doing now. If you put him next to the Rangers, he is dwarfing the entire Rangers team. So maybe it's the same thing that Babe Ruth was doing back then. Is what he is right now the greatest singular player in baseball history?
Shawn, you can start with that.
Yeah, 100%. I don't think it's close, honestly. And like I know I'm young and whatever. I don't care. I don't care. It's unbelievable what he's doing. Like I didn't get to watch the game where he hit 3 home runs and struck out 10 batters and pitched 7 innings. That was at a wedding. And
I was at the fair. I went to the fair.
Aww. And I woke up the next morning and I hear like, oh, he hit 3 home runs, and you're like, that's amazing. And then like I didn't hear till like an hour later that he also struck out 10 batters and pitched 7 innings. I just like I think we're in this world where like we want to really over criticize and over nitpick everything. It's unbelievable what he's doing. I am, and I'll be a victim of the moment. I don't care. I think he's like the best athlete of all time until Victor Wembanyama grows to be like 7'9" by next season,
which he may do.
Because that's coming too, and that's going to just ruin everything another level. No, I don't know. I don't know how you quantify what Shohei is doing and has done for like half a decade now.
And he's running too. I mean, it's like now he got thrown out in the World Series last night, but still. This is a huge human being. He's what, 6'5", and just and look, Aaron Judge is also a really big guy and does do a lot of things as well too. We are seeing some phenomenal performances in baseball. This is great for baseball in general. Although I was thinking about that last night. Is this what Evan? I'm going to let you say what you're thinking about Shohei in just a second, but is that? Is it good that this game is going until 2:00 in the morning, Dallas time? I mean, it is for people who like baseball, but I know this generation that we live in now is that, oh my gosh, if it's over 2 hours, I can't watch it. It's like, that's what people love about the NBA and about soccer, that bang, it's going to be over before you know it.
I'll say this, when you watch a great baseball game with a lot on the line, it really, you almost embrace how long it lasts, because it is such there's so many individual great moments in it. And I get the idea that by and large, when it's 162 games, you don't want them lasting 3 hours apiece. But it's a World Series game in which the greatest players of this generation and maybe of all time are playing and executing historic performances. I mean, there have been 4 occasions now in Major League history where a player has reached 9 times in a game. The last was done in 1942 before Ohtani did it in the World Series. Shohei has now reached base 10 consecutive times in the World Series and has a 1236 OPS this postseason. This is a performance for the ages, and I don't want to hear debates on whether these games last too long at this point or whether the Dodgers are bad for baseball. What's bad for baseball, as I have maintained, is owners who aren't willing to put in all their resources and go for it like the Dodgers do. The Dodgers are the model for baseball, not the ruination of baseball. And it was just such a joy to watch. And this whole postseason, again, has been a joy to watch. And I will say this, that appreciate baseball history as much as anybody. And I am starting to think that, while Babe Ruth changed the game for generations to come, Shohei Ohtani is perhaps the greatest singular talent to ever step foot on a baseball field.
Yeah, I'm starting to wind that way myself. If he hits like today, if he throws a no hitter and hits 2 or 3 bombs, then okay, I'll give him the nod.
I'll see it first.
This game, what is this, game 4? Yeah, this is game 4. Game 4 should really be something. It was like it's going to be 17 hours between the end of game 3 and
Shohei's interview after the game basically was like, I'd really like to get home and get some sleep. So
yeah,
I just will say this. The last thing I've got to say on this was the other thing that struck home for me, and I don't know how it reverberated with Shawn, but watching the Blue Jays and watching the Dodgers again just reminds me just how egregiously insulting the Rangers offense was this year. It was, I can't believe I'm using this word. It was putrid. It's just, it was an abomination, and it needs to be corrected.
Yeah. To bring it full circle, having watched Texas football this season, it reminds me a lot of the Rangers, the 2025 Rangers, where great defense, I think a really good defense, and it's just so unfun watching the offense for long, long stretches. And it feels like really cruel that I have to watch that again in football form this fall. But yeah, I mean, you watch. My big thing about the Blue Jays and Dodgers, and it kind of goes off your point, Evan, is like the two right teams made the World Series. Not just the talent, obviously, the individual players that make it, but the teams that really want to go for it. The Dodgers, obviously, the Blue Jays have finished second in a lot of these big free agency runnings to the Dodgers. There's the famous Shohei thing last year with the plane. But you have these two teams that want to invest, that want to be here. They're fun to watch. It's fun offenses to watch. It's great pitching. I just think you don't always get like the two quote unquote right teams in the World Series, and I feel like this is a perfect example of that. And it's very different from the 2025 Texas Rangers.
And we are starting, because of Shawn's trauma that he suffered this year, we are starting a GoFundMe for him.
Thank you.
To fund his recovery from watching bad baseball and underachieving football.
Yeah.
Kevin, do you want to make the first contribution?
Sure.
Okay.
I'm on it. We took him to lunch on.
Kevin got me lunch this week, and it was great.
So that was good. All right, that's going to do it for our podcast this week. We thank you for sitting in with us. We'll be back again next week to talk more about the season for the Cowboys that is not a disaster, and also about where these college teams are sitting, and see if there's been any more history made in the World Series. So from everybody in here to everybody out there, thanks, and we'll see you next time.